I'm just like I said, I always do these random streams just to look back for myself. But when I'm learning, I might as well just try to help you guys and figure out how I learn things and if it helps. So I was using Claude Code, right? And I had a couple things I needed to change about the application, and one of them had to do with payments. Another thing was I inadvertently called everything on my Market Hustle app workflows when it comes to like actually buying and selling. Like, how does it all work, right? How does instant booking work and all that kind of good stuff? How does what's the workflow, right? So it created this nice little document for me for a workflow source of truth, like how inquiry forms work and all that kind of good stuff. All that to say, I forgot that Claude Code recently released workflows, right? And workflows are really freaking sick from what I was hearing, and I just wanted to know more about it. So I just said, hey, explain this to me like I'm new to AI, I'm 15 years old, just so at a higher level so it's not super complicated. Going through this document, right? Imagine you have a smart AI helper like Claude Code. Essentially, what it was saying was it automatically creates multiple sub agents that you don't have to describe and have to give a instructions for, right? So essentially, before, I think the idea was obviously agents already existed for a while, but you can create like a security agent, you can create a developer agent, right? And then you can create a QA agent, but you would have to give it certain parameters and everything that you would have to give it. But I think what workflows now is that Claude would automatically do this based off of the task that you ask it. And this is generally for larger tasks. But I think these sub agents that are kicked off, there can be so many of them. And then I think they describe how the sub agents all work. So I was getting to that. I didn't even finish this. Building your own agent orchestration, you are the architect. You decide how many agents there are, write instructions for each one, define exactly what they do, and set up how they pass. It's like a personally drawing up a team, everyone's job description, scheduling all their meetings before any work powerful, but a lot setup is fixed. You design ahead of time. A dynamic workflow, Claude is the architect on the fly. You just describe the big goal, port the code base, audit the whole server, and Claude dynamically writes the orchestration scripts that run the sub agent. So word dynamic is the key. Claude plans dynamically based on your prompt instead of pre-designing. There's also a quieter technical advantage. In a normal setup, every sub-agent result has to flow back through the main manager who reads it and passes it along. And since AI reads, writes, and tokens, all that relaying costs extra time and money. People sometimes call this the token tax. With workflows, the coordination happens outside the conversation, so the plan stays on track with no matter how big the task gets. The manager isn't bottlenecked. That's interesting. So like, this is the probably the biggest improvement is I think when you had like the main orchestration agent and then you had these sub agents, they would pass back and forth between each other. So right, so like let's say that you're the CEO and you have three employees. One of the employees would kind of come and give you information. You would take that information, then you would give it to the second employee. The second employee did their little workflow and stuff, and then they would again give you back the information. And this it keeps causing bottlenecks, right? Let's say you have to call every single one every single time. So, before you can take the call with subagent 2 and 3, I'm guessing, I don't know if I'm describing right, the first one would call you, you would have to relay information back and forth between each other before you get to the next step. The second would call you third. Your phone would keep ringing. So now I think that happens without bottlenecking you. They just kind of go ahead and create so many subagents and they check their own work, I think. One agent doing a group project alone, manual orchestration you're personally building. Dynamic, you tell Claude the goal. The Claude builds and runs a team, including itself, including teammates who double check and argue with each other, then hands one off. Two things worth knowing: it's power hungry, network consumes substantially more tokens than a typical Claude sense. So we're going to start on the scope task and usage and unbrief plans. Okay, so how does it deal with the fact that it doesn't the token tax, right? You were talking about how um, the subagents don't have to go back to the main orchestrator to bog them down. How does that actually work with this new workflow stuff? How did Claude solve this so the orchestrator, the main one, doesn't have to keep orchestrating, right? How does that even work? So like, let's say a simple task would be like, can you go ahead and rewrite this code, right? This 100 lines of code to a different language, or translate this, I don't know, English book, the Harry Potter book, to let's say German. So like, would each sub agent just take a chapter, and then like, how does the orchestrator like manage all this? How does like Claude deal with all of this? I don't know why I thought of that as a scenario. Let's see. Let's see what it comes up with. My hand's been hurting. I ended up jamming it while playing basketball, so I've been trying to like just massage it and figure it out. Okay. Let me explain why the orchestrator gets bogged down. An AI like Claude thinks using something called context window, basically short-term working memory, everything pays attention, fits inside. Now picture the old way of managing sub-agents, where the orchestrator itself is an AI. If you are translating Harry Potter and 30 sub-agents each translate a chapter, every one of those German chapters has to be read back into the orchestrator's memory so it can manage them. That's a problem. The orchestrator is not holding 30 chapters of German, plus the original English, plus all the back and forth. Its memory fills up, it slows down, it gets expensive, and worst of all, it can start losing track of early chapters as the later ones pile in. That's the token tax. The manager is drowning and everything has to be personally read. The trick: make the manager a programmer, not a thinker. Here's how dynamic workflow solve. Instead of using Claude's expensive AI brain as a full-time manager, Claude dynamically writes an orchestration plan, orchestration scripts that run the sub-agents, and report from people who's examined the feature is that these are actual code files. Wait, what? And the report from people, think of a little JavaScript that eliminate the need for intermediate results to pass through a central, allowing the Claude and run the sub-agents, right? Orchestration scripts that run the sub-agents, and the report from people who've examined the feature is these. I don't understand what this is. Why does that matter? Because code doesn't have a context window the way an AI does. A plain program can hold a list of 30 chapters, hand chapter 1 to one agent, chapter 2 another, collect all the 30 finished German files and save them to a folder, all without an AI ever reading all 30 chapters into its memory. The script is just moving data around like a mailroom sorting machine, shoving envelopes into the right slots, moving a variable around in code, basically free compared to feeding text to the AI. How does it work? Claude does this thinking once up front to plan a job and write the script. Then the script runs on its own. The script only wakes up the expensive AI for the parts that genuinely need intelligence, doing a translation, reviewing, show. All the plumbing between those small steps is ordinary codes. That's literally what the announcement means when it says the coordination happens outside the car. So the plan stays on track. Walking through, let's go through examples, because it's not like sticking super clear. I understand the general overall concept, like wow, its workflows is great, but sometimes I feel like you need to get down into the really, really down and dirty details of this stuff. I'm sure there's a lot going on, but overly simplified, it's just at the end of the day, it just helps you save token tax. It helps bog down the not bog down the orchestrator. Helps you, achieve your goal a lot quicker. But I'm just wondering like how it does that so well. Walking through the 100-line, and so like, what if the plan it writes is really bad to begin with? The 100-line code rewrite wouldn't use a workflow at all. It's small enough for one agent in the past. Spinning up a whole team here would be hiring a movie company carry one box. Workflows are overkill and they burn way more tokens. Harry Potter into German is where it shines. Roughly the script Claude writes to do this. First, one agent reads through and builds a glossary. How to handle names, invented words, spells it, tones, the Hogwarts and Muggle come out consistent everywhere. The script saves the glossary to a file. Then it fans out. It sends out each chapter plus a glossary to its own translator agent, and then they all run the same time. No script is feeding each agent only what it needs. It's one chapter and the shared glossary, not the whole book. No single agent, no manager ever has to hold 30 chapters at once. Then the script collects the finished chapters and pipes them to a reviewer agent that checks quality. This is the part that merits a real bun rewrite, where hundreds of agents worked in parallel with 2 reviewers assigned to each file. If a chapter fails review, the scripter's built-in fix loop sends just the chapter back to be redone. It doesn't restart the whole book. In the one case, a fix drove the build and test suite until both ran clean. Finally, the script stitches the approved chapters into one file, hands it back to you. The only thing that reaches your conversation is the finished result plus a summary, not a mountain of intermediate German text agents produced along the way. The mental shift is that AI used to be a manager who personally read every report. Now the AI is a manager who writes a rule book and sorting machine, then lets the machine do the routing while the AI's brain power, save for the actual work and double checking. That's how the token tax goes away. The expensive thinking is spent only when it's actually needed. One honest caveat: Anthropic has employed every single detail how the scripts are structured. Through the above me, yeah. See, that's the exact part of it. Let me see how well it does if you ask it to write me like a visual. Write me a visual in HTML so I can conceptualize this at a low level, right? So right now, I have this workflow running, right? It's been running for a minute. Recap, we're fixing 34 issues. The 2 high severity money are done, committed, and tested next batch. 3, turning on the missing notifications. One thing to flag before we deploy. I can't tell if this is running anymore. I don't think it is. Deposit bookings no longer record as paid as full. The database level unique constraints prevent duplicate bookings. Item potency now matches deposit payment IDs across all 4 creation paths. Life cycle, money holes, sellers can't mark delivered, no show routes funds to the seller, instant freezing or rescheduling can no longer dodge the cancellation, stale verification on every batch. The unique index won't build a production order contains duplicate or leftover somewhere. Okay. I'll keep going with branching 6. This guy want me to continue to speak the other range of process reason. Okay. I already kind of went through the plan, so that's why I was telling you to just continue through. See what this comes up with. It's taking a minute. Okay. Here's an interactive low-level view. Orchestrator Claude's memory, orchestration script, plain code routes the data. Chapter 1 translator, chapter 2 translator, chapter 3. So essentially, this orchestration script, I'm guessing all of these would keep coming back to the orchestrator, right? Now, in this one, looks like the same thing. So what's the difference? Every translate chapter is read back into the AI's memory so it can manage the work. The memory fills up fast. The key thing to notice is as you toggle the orange dots are translated chapters traveling upward. In all way, they would fly all the way up to the AI orchestrator, so its memory meter pegs near the full. In the workflow, the dots stop at the plain code, which fills them to this. Only the single green summary dot continues up to the AI. The meter barely moves, and the cost, because the expensive reading never happens for the bulk of the work. The script just shuffles the data around mechanically. 2 meters of the token down. So this is all great. I mean, I'm guessing this orchestration script handles everything. But like, how is the orchestration script different now, right, from before? Like, can you dive into that piece a little bit more? Like, I understand, yeah, before all of the agents were going right back to the AI orchestrator, but how is Claude achieving this with workflows that it writes a proper orchestration script every time where each of these little agents only go back to the orchestration script or send data back to that, and then that organizes everything and sends it to the AI orchestrator only once? Or like, how does that work on the low level, the orchestration script itself? You got to keep asking why and why and why, and I feel like that's the only way you can ever really get to anything with learning. So yeah, this visual was wrong before. We didn't have this orchestration script. Before, it was just going directly to the AI memory, and this would keep figuring it out. Now we have this orchestration script that is flying up to, so that, yeah, it didn't even write the proper visual for us. But glossary chapters, ordinary JavaScript. So this is all done within the script that Claude generates right up front. This orchestration script. This orchestration script designs everything, and it's in JavaScript. Yeah, so it's a JavaScript script that orchestrates sub-agents at scale. So pretty much every time you create workflows, we have a really big JavaScript file. Where does it run all this? So I'm guessing promise allows a parallel fan out, many agents at once, runtime caps it up to 16 concurrent agents and 1,000 agents total per one to prevent runaway loops. The for and the while loops are the part that use the Claude deciding turn by turn. For let I equal 0, chapters out length I plus plus. Let's review. Await, find the translation error, input chapters I, while review that has issue, chapters I, run agent, prompt fix this issue, input text chapters review, find the translation errors. Okay, so it's all like just these agents that are running that this JavaScript code is generating, and then it comes back one agent of build, reviews everything. So I think after all this is true, this review loop, right? After this review loop finally hits true, it stitches this and returns, I guess, only this part to the main orchestrator. before all of this part kept going back to the AI, back and forth, back and forth. Now it's all just done directly here. These little sub agents are doing it all. But like, where's the context for like, I guess it's doing all that smartly up front. Like when I say where's the context for like the guidelines, so like the workflow script that it builds all that in based off of the prompt I guess you gave it to start off with. So if you're like, hey, whenever you see the word money translated to dollars or something, right? Like that context or that rule would probably be within this code itself, so the workflow. So it's always checking that, so it never has to go back to the each agent wouldn't necessarily like translate the chapter, send it back to the AI orchestrator. It would review that, and then it would be like, hey, I have to go ahead and there's an issue. You didn't like review the money part or whatever. You didn't change it to dollars, and then I guess that would go back into the loop, and then it would do that for all of them. So now all these sub agents just do that on its own based off of the script that you wrote or whatever that Claude writes, and yeah. So I guess that's interesting. Anyways, still 74. Committing B3. Okay. So what I was doing essentially, right, is for Market Hustle is to deal with different workflows that we have. So I wanted to know how we can go ahead and create different types of workflows within our application and how they differ and how they're better and whatnot. Where submits an inquiry, seller sends a quote, adjustments. Let's see where we're at with this. Almost done with that. And I didn't even see this. Let's. You know what? I needed. So I created a market strategy for Market Hustle, and that's the part where I'm gonna have to start going really deep into trying to actually get customers. At the end of the day, my goal. So like if. So I don't know how you guys feel about this, but essentially, it's this weird thing that I have where I know exactly what I need to do to be successful. But sometimes you just I don't know. I think that almost makes it where I don't do anything because like I guess it's that fear of failure, right? Where you're like, okay, I know what I need to do exactly. And in my head I'm like, oh yeah, it'll work for sure. But since I haven't done it because the amount of work is so daunting, it's almost like you're protecting yourself by not doing it because you're like, oh, I never failed, right? Like essentially, I don't know how to describe it, right? All I can think of, this happens to me. I don't know how to describe it. I'm sure people talked about it. It's essentially this. I know, like, oh, if I, to go viral, if I do X, Y, and Z, it will work. But then it's kind of like in your head, you're like, oh yeah, that'll work for sure. But do I want to do it? Like, do I really care to do it that much? I think it all comes down to like your quality of life. Like, how bad do you really want to change things? Because I think that is directly correlated to how much work you might actually need to put in or want to put in. So right now, like if you're in a comfy spot in the sense that like you have you have a little bit of bread, you have some money, and you have these ideas, you really want to do them. It knows you know it requires a lot of like work and effort, and it's like, oh, I kind of want to do it, but at the same time, I'm like happy with where I'm at. Like as in like I'm satiated, right? You're pretty much like you're not like like super hungry. You just ate a bite, right? You just ate a meal, and you feel like, okay, I do want to eat that, but do I care enough to go out of my way to get it? And it's kind of like that's the question that you got to ask yourself when it comes, because this stuff is nowadays, with the amount of distractions, with the amount of things that are out there, and like just scrolling on YouTube, just these thumbnails, like everything is grabbing your attention. And so essentially you're saying no 50 billion times every time you're just like scrolling through YouTube. You check TikTok, you check Instagram, you check Facebook, you're checking your text messages, you're checking all this, you're watching movies, you're playing video games, you're wanting to go out and enjoy time with your friends, you want to go work out, you want, like, there's so many things attacking, and it's just fatiguing your brain. So it's kind of like, can you really decide, like, hey, this is all I need, this is all I want, I don't care about anything else, right? If somebody left a whole buffet, I feel like every single thing in life right now is just a big buffet table, right? Every single thing is at your like just at service, right? You can get anything you want off the buffet table, and it's almost causing an issue because you over indulge in stuff you shouldn't, and then you don't really care anymore, and then you're just kind of like tired and lazy, and then you're done, right? It's kind of like you if you guys kind of understand the analogy I'm getting at, right? It's a buffet is never a great thing in the essence of like, to get what you need to get done, or to get, I don't know how to describe it, but essentially it just it overwhelms you, right? Anytime you go to a buffet, you overeat, it's gluttonous, and you end up doing more than you should, and you're lethargic and lazy after, right? It's never like the same as like if you go and get a healthy meal or whatever. I don't know. I'm going kind of diverting from the topic, but all that to say, at the end of the day, if you really want it that bad, you really know what you need to do, then if you're that hungry and you know this is what you want, you'll probably go and put in all the work. But if you're not as much, because maybe your life isn't in an immediate need for this, right? If you're already making like $100,000, do you really want to make 300,000? Do you really want to make 400,000? Because it gets harder and harder. Like, it's like losing weight too. Like, let's say you want to lose 50 pounds, right? You lose 30. A lot of times people are okay with that. They're happy with the losing the 30, and losing the 30 is actually the easy part. And then even losing 40 pounds might be easier. The last 10 pounds or the last 20 pounds, whatever you want to call it, is harder than losing that. So like, I've lost over 100 pounds, or had 100 pounds at one point. I've gone from, I think, 250 all the way down to like 170 at one point. So I've lost like 80 pounds, right? So all that to say that the losing the first 50 pounds was like nothing. Like, not nothing, but it was like almost like, oh yeah, it makes sense. If I cut out junk food and I work out, I'll lose weight, right? Like, that's just pretty obvious. I think everybody knows that, like, hey, if you've been eating out every day and you've been eating and drinking soda, that all you need to do to start losing weight is like, hey, why don't I just cut out soda, and why don't I just go to the gym? Like, wow, there you go. There's 30 pounds right there. And obviously this depends on how overweight you already are, but if you're like, let's say 250 pounds and let's say 5 feet 10 inches, right? And you have a really terrible diet and you don't work out, to lose the first 30 pounds, all you would necessarily do is just go on a diet. Like, you would just cut out like soda and maybe go to the gym, and you do that consistently for 6 months, or whatever X amount of months, you probably will already lose 20-30 pounds. Now after that is where you have to dial it in, and after that is where you really decide if you really want it. That's when you need to start really averaging out your workouts, where you track every single one. Like, hey, I did cardio 2 times a week, maybe I put up it to 3 times. I did it for 45 minutes, maybe I up it to 60 minutes. I haven't been tracking calories. I've just been eating healthy, but now I have to track the calories. Even that healthy granola bar that you think you're eating, or that healthy green smoothie juice, is not necessarily healthy, right? It's still making you go over your calories. It's still causing you to not lose weight, and this is where you keep dialing it in. All that to say, for me, for Market Hustle, I'm trying to build this whole thing, and it really depends. Like, if you need to cut out all the distraction, you need to get rid of the buffet table. You need to have one thing that you really want, and that's what you will go drive out an hour to get. That's what you will do, whatever it is to get to it, and you need to decide if you're hungry enough for it. If you're not, you most likely will not get to it. You'll skip around because there's too much distraction nowadays to get to your destination goal. And even with this AI thing, AI is super cool. It's amazing. The only issue is that it's also causing so much ideas, and just there's so many things you can do with it that's almost useless, right? Like a lot of times people are building overly AI workflows or automation workflows that are not necessarily needed, and that are might be overwhelming, or you might have four, five, six different ideas, and you might be pursuing four, five, six ideas at the same time because it can do that for you, and um, you think you're making progress in all of them because AI does a great job of giving you like the blueprint. Because the biggest issue with a lot of times before was starting, right? Just starting was the hardest part. Getting the first couple hundred words of your essay, getting the blueprint ready to go to get to the next part was the hardest part. Now that part is solved. So essentially you can have a blueprint ready and up and running in a few minutes for five, six different ideas. Now the hard part is getting down into that blueprint and keep building on it, keep building on it, keep building on it to the point where you are been working on it for like four, whatever, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months straight, every single day, iterating the smaller processes, like the small processes, whatever it is. You just keep prompting it, redoing it, and making it better and better and better. And that's where a lot of people get lost, right? Because if you were trying to learn how to play basketball, if you were trying to learn how to play football, if you were trying to learn how to play golf all at the same time, and you were putting in work in the initial phase, the first 1 month of every single one of those sports, if you first got a trainer in basketball, football, and golf, you would do amazing from zero to whatever your progress. Let's say 0 to 100. 100 is LeBron James or Michael Jordan. You started zero on each of these sports. In month one, you might go from 0 to 40. You might go from 0 to 30. You might go from month one, right? Where you learn the fundamentals. You know how to dribble a basketball. You know how to shoot a little bit, right? And 1 month is, like I said, it might be 3 months. Let's say 3 month plan. In 3 months, you can go from 0 to 30 or even 40, depending on like what your baseline is. If you're already kind of athletic in shape, whatever. On each of these sports, you would learn the fundamentals. You would learn how to swing, all that. Now, to get to the rest, where you really start going level up by each time, where let's say you're at 30 right now, 30 out of 100. If you want to get to 40, you would put an extra like 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week to get to 50. You would put 6 hours a week to get to 70. You would put 8 hours. Like it just gets to a point where you're putting out so much time into each, like you wouldn't have enough time to do it into all the sports, right? You would cap off. Essentially what I'm saying is after the blueprint, you would cap off. After the first 3 months, if you think you're going to make more progress like the first 3 months or not, you're pretty much going to be capped off because it gets harder and harder. And that's when you need to focus on one. You can't just focus on three because you're going to lose one, right? And things keep evolving. You have to, like, it wouldn't work. How many multi-sports athletes have we seen? Very rarely do you see multi-sport athletes. It's very rare, and then even them, they have to pick one or the other. MJ was amazing at basketball. He sucked at golf. I mean, he sucked at baseball. I don't know how well he was at golf, but he was no Tiger Woods, and he was no, Otani in baseball. He was trashed compared to like his peers. So now imagine if MJ never played basketball and went full into golf and full into baseball, or just one of the sports, right? If he went full into baseball, this guy might have been one of the best baseball players ever. If he went fully into golf, he might be one of the best golfers ever. He might have been Tiger Woods because of his mentality and like his baseline and everything he has set, but he chose basketball, and that's just how it goes, right? So all that to say, I don't know how this AI thing turned into this life lesson. It's kind of for myself, right? I really want to do this, and I really want, to build cool stuff and, get ahead and get into shape and all this stuff. It just kind of shows you that you really need to focus at one piece at a time, and you need to really go get into the boring details of each thing and keep working on it and keep working on it, keep working on it until the point where, it's just hard for other people to compete because they're doing so many different things, and the one person hasn't kept going at that. They haven't been sticking to one thing. They've been passing around from one sport to another, and at that point nothing gets done, right? You're just kind of doing busy work. AI is pretty much busy work for like 90, I think, for almost 70-80% of people who use it in their personal time. Like, I think a lot of, like, obviously besides the Google part of it where it's like, hey, my hand hurts, or I'm trying to find this TV show, and you ask AI and it gives you like the Google search. Besides the Google search part of it, or the AI help part of it, actually building something with AI, 80% of the things that people are doing, I feel like, are just kind of like whatever. They're not really great. They're just kind of like, okay, this is pretty cool. Do I care about it? It's just busy work, right? It makes you feel like, oh, build me a cool little game on my computer that I can play. It's like, yeah, this is great. 2 weeks later, you're never going to touch that game again. You're going to tell AI to be like, oh, can you create this cool thing? And then, you do it. And then it's just busy work. It seems really cool. Things are getting done. But do you care about it enough to build it for 6 months, to keep going on it, build a company around it, to start pitching, to start doing marketing around it, to start build Instagram profiles and YouTube, to create content around it? Is it enough where you want to go pursue and tell other people about it, raise money for it, put your money into it? And like, do you care about it that much? Or is it just like a little hobby? And I think for most people it's a hobby, right? That's fine. But all that to say, if you really want to get to that next level, you in my head, what I'm thinking is like, you have to start doing stuff that not everyone can do, right? And prompting AI everyone can do, but prompting it 1,000 times a day for 6 months, that's where you start getting capping off. And then after that, on top of that, actually doing the actionable items after prompting it 1,000 times a day for 6 months straight or whatever. Can you actually implement the changes it's saying? Can you reach out to actual people? Can you start talking to and marketing your place? Can you start opening up Instagram and social media and getting on it and recording content? Can you, I don't know, raise money, talk to VCs? Can you watch YouTube videos about this? Can you tell Claude to take the YouTube videos and transcribe all of the ones that have to deal with building a successful company or building anything successful, and then figuring out like, hey, this is what I need to do? Can you audit, what you have been doing? Can you tell AI to critique you and to be like, hey, make sure you're not a yes man, and what I'm doing, can you ask for feedback from other users? Can you, like, there's just so much that goes into it, where at the point where like, okay, somebody who's building it really wants it, and they really, really, really have got to put all that time and effort into it. So all that to say, for me, I know what I need to do, and the only reason I might not be doing is because either I'm satiated at the moment, it's not hitting me as hard as it should be, and I need to really decide like, hey, you got to get punched in your mouth to be like, yo, you got to get back up and you got to stick to this and keep going. Or you don't even have to. You have to really decide, like, is this what you want? Do you really care about the next level that much? Do you really care if your goal was to lose 50 pounds? Do you really care if you only lost 30? That you really care about that the next 20? Do you really care about it that much, right? If your goal was to make say 500,000 a year and you made 150, do you really care to go to the next level, right? If your goal was to hit 53s in basketball and you hit 30 in a row, do you really care to hit to that 50? And I think that's the point, where the part where you really got to ask yourself and get to the next level. So one thing that I realized that when you're building out a big full-fledged application with AI, one issue is that there are so many different files that it might generate and that you can't keep track of, right? Somebody who, if you're somebody who hasn't come from an AI coding background or whatever, from a coding background, right? Somebody who's organized entire file structures. Let me show you guys what VS Code would look like, right? It's very daunting and confusing, even for me, somebody who's been in tech. I suck at managing all these files. Look at all this stuff, right? You're telling me you can just go quickly in your top of your head, you'd be like, hey, where is this part of the UI and how does it connect to the back end? You would be able to quickly go into the back end, go into your source file, go into the jobs file, or this TypeScript file, .ts, right here. This is the code that maps directly to the front end UI. Like, no, it's so hard to do that for anybody, right? Like, people have spent, that's why coding was such a big thing. And it just makes sense that computers are the best at it, because they can it's just easier for them because they work in this language, right? And so all that to say, it's hard managing this. And so when you are building a project, one thing you should always look out for is where it creates multiple different references of the same file or the same logic across different instances of your code base. And it's hard to organize that because even AI gets sloppy, right? And it starts creating stuff that you already have in another file. So the issue I had was, let's say a user booked on Market Hustle, right? I purchased a service for somebody, right? And I have this booking. Now, when a booking happens, a couple things need to happen. An email needs to be fired off. A text message needs to be fired off. There needs to be a payment like associated with this booking ID. So like, how much is a payment for this booking? Is it $100, $200? There needs to be a price that's kind of set on there. There needs to be a field that says like, hey, has this been paid? Yes or no. If it hasn't been paid, then it needs to follow this workflow. So what's the event location and event time? So you have all these different data fields, but not only was it getting stored in the booking ID, right? There was another file that we had like an inquiry form where that was also coming in where it had the same information copied over. And then there was another point where in the email, it was essentially what AI was kind of doing was instead of taking one source of truth, it was duplicating it. So it was like, hey, after the booking ID is made, let's just copy all of the stuff from the booking ID and let's put it directly into the email. And then if we had a reschedule, the reschedule would go ahead and check the booking ID, and then it would have its own logic file, like a reschedule file, and that reschedule file would have an appointment date that's different from the booking date, which makes sense. But now the email, it's still grabbing from the booking ID. It's not grabbing from the reschedule file folder, right? We don't need a reschedule folder per se. We just need a logic. So whenever reschedule happens, change the booking ID rescheduling date or whatever to become the source of truth, right? So everything that's borrowing from this booking ID schema or whatever database is the source of truth for the email, for the receipt, for the text message that gets sent out, for the backend, for everything. So all that to say, there's like multiple different references for the same file, and it was getting bogged down. Payments, deposits paid, right? So for example, this was saying that there was an error where somebody might pay a deposit and somehow the payment is causing it to count as it's been paid in full, right? And that's a huge issue. This has been running for a minute. There's a lot. So I do like the fact that it gave me this little buyer side counteroffer negotiation. I completely forgot we have this for products, right? Like on OfferUp, you can go ahead and something's for $40, you can go ahead and make an offer for 30. But when it came to actual contracts and stuff, there was no negotiation necessarily for it. So like if somebody quoted you for a wedding for 2,500, you would just chat with them and be like, hey, how about for 2,300? And then they would be like, okay, cool, just sell me that, right? That's easy. But if you wanted it to be on like a contract level where you have the whole contract laid out and they sent you a 2,500, then you would go ahead and be like, hey, can you make it 2,300? And then the buyer's like, okay. But then they would have to edit the like the whole contract again and generate a new one. They would have to create a whole new contract. And so this way we can just do a negotiation possibly where the seller would just suggest a price, and if you hit accept, it would automatically change the contract that you just sent over to be less. But I don't know if it's a great thing that we should implement, but it's definitely something that's nice that AI is suggesting for us.